Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the turbulent, totally record-breaking, and honestly deeply dramatic history of the Eagles. We're talking about a band that didn't just define an era, they literally revolutionized the entire music industry. But, as you'll see, they also walked this incredibly fine line between soaring harmony and devastating personal collapse.
All right, let's kick things off with a staggering number: 40 million. In 2026, the Eagles became the absolute first band in history to earn a quadruple diamond certification from the RIAA. That's for 40 million units sold of their 1971 to 1975 greatest hits collection alone. To put that into perspective, 40 million is roughly 1/8 of the current U.S. population. It's just a monumental, awe-inspiring achievement in commercial music. So, this massive milestone naturally begs the question, right? What does it actually take to dethrone the absolute peak of 80s pop? Because, everyone thinks of Michael Jackson's Thriller as the untouchable titan of record sales. But it's actually the Eagles' greatest hits that holds the crown as the #1 best-selling album of all time in the United States. No way, right? How did a rock band from the 70s pull that off?
Well, to answer that, we need to head into Part 1, the California Sound. Let's trace their rise from a group of 4 young musicians hired to back up Linda Ronstadt to discovering their definitive country rock style.
Looking at the original 1971 lineup, you've got this perfect storm of distinct musical pedigrees. Glenn Frey, coming from the Detroit scene, brought these sharp lyrics and a great ear for melody. Don Henley, the Texan, gave them this deep, introspective tone. Then you had Bernie Leadon, a multi-instrumentalist with serious country rock cred from the Flying Burrito Brothers. And Randy Meisner? His high, haunting vocals gave them an undeniable edge. Together, these 4 guys laid the foundation for a global phenomenon.
But here's where things get really interesting. Even though the Eagles started out as this musical democracy with shared vocal duties, you can clearly see how the creative control shifted. Don Henley and Glenn Frey overwhelmingly started dominating both the lead vocals and the songwriting credits. They quickly stepped up as the de facto leaders, pretty much dictating the band's lyrical voice and their commercial direction.
Now, as their ambitions grew, they knew their sound had to evolve from Americana to a harder, radio-ready rock. And with that evolution, well, came some serious friction. Don Felder was brought in around 1974 to add some real guitar bite. But Bernie Leadon grew super disillusioned with this shift away from country. It actually got so bad that he famously and kind of absurdly poured a beer directly over Glenn Frey's head during a rehearsal before just quitting in 1975. In his place steps Joe Walsh, who brings this irreverent spirit and exactly the heavy guitar chops the band was desperately looking for.
So here's the crucial, actually deeply ironic point about all of this. Their record-shattering greatest hits album? It wasn't some grand artistic statement at the time. It was literally a strategic stalling tactic by their label. Pushed by executive David Geffen, this release was just designed to buy the band some much-needed studio time. They needed breathing room to craft their next record, so dropping a compilation of early hits kept their name on the charts while they labored away.
And that strategic pause gave them the exact space they needed for Part 2, the masterpiece, Hotel California. This is where they crafted what would become one of the most culturally significant albums of the 20th century. The journey of this masterpiece actually started in a rented Malibu beach house. Don Felder recorded this really simple instrumental demo on a Rhythm Ace drum machine. Because it had this distinct Latin flair, the band originally dubbed it Mexican reggae. Think about that. From that humble little demo, it grew into a sprawling 6.5-minute global phenomenon. It actually required a staggering 33 studio edits on a 2-inch master tape just to get those dueling guitars perfectly right. This brilliantly illustrates the playful, yet pretty sharp rivalry they shared with their peers, specifically Steely Dan. Did you know Steely Dan had actually name-dropped the Eagles in one of their tracks first? So Frey and Henley hit a clever lyrical nod right back at them in Hotel California, with the line, "They stab it with their steely knives, but they just can't kill the beast." It's a fantastic nod to the boldness of Steely Dan's writing, which honestly pushed the Eagles to elevate their own lyrical game.
Now, over the decades, people have theorized this song is about everything from Satanism to a state mental hospital, but the truth is far more grounded. It wasn't just some cinematic ghost story. It was a profound, deeply paranoid commentary on 1970s Los Angeles decadence. As Don Henley perfectly summed it up, it's about the myth-making of America, the loss of innocence, and the dark underbelly of the American dream.
Of course, following up a masterpiece brings immense, crushing pressure, and that leads us straight into Part 3, the breaking point.
Recording their 1979 follow-up, The Long Run, was an agonizing, year-and-a-half-long slog. I mean, they had promised a double album but could only scrounge up a single disc. Why? Because they walked into the studio with literally 0 finished songs. The environment was utterly chaotic, totally fueled by exhaustion, heavy substance use, and completely frayed nerves. It got so toxic that Randy Mesner just couldn't take it anymore and walked away, making room for Timothy B. Schmidt to join.
The juxtaposition here is just incredible. The flawless, soaring vocal harmonies of their music completely mask the bitter, fractured reality of their personal relationships behind the scenes. By 1980, Glenn Frey and Don Henley couldn't even stand to be in the same room together. In fact, to fulfill their contract for an upcoming live album, they literally recorded their vocal parts in separate studios located in entirely different states. Crazy, right?
Well, this boiling animosity finally exploded into open hostility on July 31, 1980, during a benefit concert in Long Beach, California. Glenn Frey and Don Felder spent the entire performance muttering physical threats to each other between songs. Imagine that. It was a 4-hour exercise in pure interpersonal tension that effectively destroyed the band that very night, kicking off a bitter hiatus that would stretch for over a decade.
The breakup seemed absolute, final, done. When a reporter asked if the band would ever play together again, Don Henley offered his now famous, incredibly stubborn prediction. He declared they would reunite when hell freezes over. But, you know, in the music industry, the fans, the legacy, and the sheer weight of the music itself usually have the final say. Which brings us to part 4, Hell Freezes Over.
This impossible reunion actually unfolded in 3 super surprising steps. First, a wildly successful country tribute album to the Eagles drops in 1993. Second, country star Travis Tritt asked the band members to appear in his music video for Take It Easy. And they agreed. That simple shoot put them in the same room for the first time in 13 years. That lunch meeting, it sparked the fire. It led straight to their 1994 MTV special and a massive world tour. Aptly named, of course, the Hell Freezes Over Tour.
From that triumphant return, they entered Part 5, an enduring legacy, securing their untouchable, legendary status in rock history.
Their modern era proved they were definitely far more than just a nostalgia act. In 2007, they finally released that long-promised double album, Long Road Out of Eden. And while the band faced true heartbreak with the tragic passing of founding member Glenn Frey in 2016, they found a really beautiful way to honor their history. They brought in Glenn's son, Deacon Frey, alongside country legend Vince Gill. This allowed the band to continue touring with genuine heart and credibility. Today, their music absolutely transcends generations. As of 2026, the Eagles have been setting records for the longest-running residency at the revolutionary Sphere venue in Las Vegas. We're talking over 700,000 fans across 44 sold-out performances. Decades after they formed in LA, they are still dominating the global stage as one of the highest-grossing live acts on the entire planet.
To really visualize their enduring commercial dominance, just consider this for a second. If you took those 40 million physical copies of their greatest hits vinyl records and laid them all side by side, they would stretch 7,575 miles. That is a continuous line of records running all the way from their home in Los Angeles, California, straight to Cairo, Egypt. It's a footprint on global culture that is almost difficult to even comprehend. Which brings us to our final thought for this explainer. When you look at the incredible, record-shattering highs, the massive wealth, the brilliant artistry, and you stack that against the bitter breakups, the total exhaustion, and the fractured friendships, what are we really looking at here? I'll leave you to ponder the incredibly fine line the Eagles walked. Is their story the ultimate realization of the American dream, or is it a cautionary tale of the American nightmare?